Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to give you my review of the new Drukhari Codex. Now I'm very excited for this. Drukhari was the first faction I ever collected back in 3rd edition, where they were part of the starter box. I think that's right anyway, and although I'm not currently playing them, it is a faction that I do hold very dear, and I'd love to play them at some point in the future. Just need to get around to painting my faction, painting all the models I've currently got. So that's going to work. To begin with, I'm just going to give you the overall thoughts, the bad news, good news sort of stuff here for those who just want to see like big news stuff. I'll give it here, and then I'll go into a lot more detail on the codex bit by bit throughout this review. But those of you just wanting the sort of highlights, going to give them here. So, bad news, we'll start with that. Reavers are marked down as 10 points, they're obviously a mistake, they should be 20. Psychic defense is here, it's not great but possible. There is one good, I think it's a relic or stratagem that can work well. If you're fighting a very psychic heavy force, it might do quite a bit of damage. More of a focus on combat, Kabals seem a little bit weird here. Power from Pain is odd, a lot of units have invuls already, however Coven units are going to absolutely love it. Ravager is not core, so the old reroll hits and wound combo I don't think works anymore. No vet still, I mean, this is the perfect time for him. We all knew he wasn't going to come yet. We have these almost scenery based characters, the Triumphant of St. Catherine, the Silent King, many of them in Age of Sigmar. You know, basically the time to do the model extreme justice on a big flying barge is here, and it will be glorious. Can only hope, you know, this is due to this being an early codex. When when the next big narrative thing happens, and I'm guessing that Craft Worlds, I mean, they're just asking for an update. You know, maybe they'll give Drukhari one extra model, and if that model is Vect, I think we'll all be delighted. But the main point is, it's not here, even though I think the time for it, in terms of modelling, you know, capabilities, is definitely there with the Triumph of St. Catherine Silent King proving it. But what's the good stuff? So transport capacity has improved. I think everyone is going to be delighted on that one. The Raider is now of a capacity of 11 and Venoms are 6. That means you don't need a boat for your individual characters, though kind of fitting in a bit of a way, you know, with their pride. But, you know, I think practicality on the tabletop, that is fantastic. Some of the deadliest combos I've seen in 9th edition yet. Now, what I mean by that is of the new codexes, so that is your Space Marines, your Necrons, and your Death Guards. Now, Space Marines just have so many combination options that they will always have something that's probably better, but I think as this standalone codex, really actually some good stuff here. Points largely the same as the latest Warhammer community, 4th of Feb 2021. Mistakes though, again I said that the Reavers are marked down as 10 points in the codex. No chance they're going to be the same points as a Witch. They're going to probably be 20 points as the Warhammer community one is on there. Psychic defense, as I said, is possible. There is a few ways. It's just not like a dedicated character or something like that. It would be a bit more, we would like something a bit more substantial there, but it is possible. More focus on combat, witches will absolutely like this. Coven units are very tough and some great combos here. Prepare for, well, if you've got a lot of grotesques, if you thought they were good beforehand, I think you're going to be delighted here. I think they're still very solid. A lot of relics seem useful in a variety of ways. There's not many generic relics, but there is plenty of them for like each Cabal, cult, etc. And I think many of them are actually quite good. Custom Cabals are a lot better than Psychic Awakening attempt. I think they tried to do custom Cabals in Psychic Awakening, it didn't go so well. I think they're a lot better this time. Units with core rules, and there is a lot of them: Kabalite Warriors, Witches, Racks, Court of the Archon, Incubi, Grotesques, Reavers, Hellions, Scourges, Talos, Chronos. So plenty of units there that have the core keyword, which will obviously count for a lot of rerolls and for a lot of abilities. So people probably very wants to know which units have the core rule. That is the ones I could see in the codex. Going to go with our data sheet abilities and data sheet abilities. These are some of the abilities you're going to find that are very army wide, and they're based on page 49 and 89 in the codex. So Drukhari Detachment has a few rules to it. Mainly is made of only Drukhari and unaligned units. They gain raiding forces and weakling kin ability. Each detachment is broken down into either Cabal Detachment, Wych Cult Detachment, Haemonculi Covens Detachment, and Real Space Raid Detachment. Only one Real Space Raid detachment is allowed in your army, and you gain the Real Space Raid ability. Troop units and Drukhari detachments gain OBSEC. So, raiding force, if your army, if every detachment in your Drukhari, if every detachment is a Drukhari patrol detachment, change the command cost of these to 0. All Cabal units and Cabal detachments gain Drukhari obsession. All Wych Cult units and Wych Cult detachment gain Drukhari obsession. All Haemonculi Cult units and Haemonculi Covens detachments gain Drukhari obsession. This was shown already, though I didn't notice it. If all detachments are patrol, then they're free, which means if you're trying to combine it with Real Space Raid without costing it, I suppose it can be a bit tricky, but I suppose the goal was either or. Weakling Kin, you cannot combine Drukhari and non-Drukhari Eldari units in the same detachment unless all those units have Ynnari keyword. Simply put, trying to cut down on Eldari combined detachments, but I didn't think they were too common in the first place anyway, at the moment. Next up we have the Real Space Raid. If it does not specify what kind of detachment makes this up, there is an example on page 66 to 67 showing an example of one using battalion detachment to make up, so I can assume it can be any standard detachment. Just with Real Space Raid keywords and other restrictions, these are: Archon has to be a Warlord, and then one of each of the following: one Succubus, one Homunculus, one Kabalite Warrior unit, one Witch unit, and one Rack unit. So I suppose you've got to make sure you do have 3 HQ choices to choose from in your detachment, otherwise you can't be Real Space Raid. All but your Blade for Hire, we'll go into that a bit later, but Incubi, Mandrakes, etc., unless specified, gain Drukhari Obsession. You can choose relics from Cabal, Wych Cult, and Haemonculi Covens for units in detachment, even though your Warlord is not a Wych Cult or Haemonculi Covens. All units gain Real Space Raid keywords. Warlord ability replaces with Raid Mastermind. Reroll 1s to hit of Real Space Raider core units within 6 inches of this Warlord. So, I can see Real Space Raid working in some ways. They're very clear with the 2 ways in which this works. If you're going to go multiple detachments, then you can go your patrol, and that's quite nice. Real Space Raid is also quite nice as well, because then your Blades for Hire, which is Incubi, I think that if they're in the Archon detachment, well, if they take up from the Cabal obsession, I'm pretty sure, then that's quite nice. Basically, your Blades for Hire can get a Drukhari obsession. That's quite good. And then obviously you can get bigger access to relics. In additional abilities, these are your Power from Pain. Only applies if every unit in your Drukhari or if every unit in your army's Drukhari are unaligned. At each battle round you get an effect. Battle round 1, 6 up invul. Battle round 2, advance and charge. Battle round 3, melee attack and melee attack is +1 to hit. Vehicles or monsters do not suffer the effects of firing heavy weapons in engagement range. Battle round 4 is 5 up invul. And battle round 5 is immune to morale, and for any unit where characteristic cause it to get worse, it counts its wounds as double of what they currently are. I think it's I'm a bit surprised that they made this the sort of army-wide ability, but I know that every codex seems to be getting one, just as it seems a bit odd that it was Power from Pain. Honestly, I would prefer it to maybe have been that they always get Power from Pain, but their army-wide one would be you count the battle round as just being 1 higher. That would be really, really nice to encourage you to go more to carry. But either way, it is still quite useful. I'd probably say it's more useful for your melee units far more now, and your Covens for survivability. Poison weapons, unmodified wound rolls of marked amount, i.e. poison 4+ of this value is always successful, does not work on vehicles or Titanic. Blade Artist, this is quite new, melee attacks from a unit with this ability that wound on an unmodified roll of 6 is treated as an additional -1 AP. Nearly everything in the army does have this, so there's a big push towards combat, but nearly everything has this Blade Artist. It just makes things a bit more deadly, so that's quite nice in a way. One thing I'd say is that, they replaced Power from Pain to make it more about invuls, even though a lot of the codex does have invuls already for it. For instance, your Raiders and Venoms, they already have their invuls. They're just now losing out on the Ignore Wounds, though I'm not sure if the vehicles benefited from that anyway. It just seems very, very odd, though your Coven units are going to actually enjoy it, because then they get invuls, they currently already Ignore Wounds. And if you're wanting, I know Death Guard removed this sort of Ignore Wounds, and I think it was trying to make things a bit more simpler, but having Blade Artists as a universal rule where you have to remove all the 6s when you wound, as there are additional AP, then you need to work out different saves, that's quite a complex thing. That's going to slow down the game quite a lot. We also have Insensible to Pain, which is 5 up Ignore Wounds. This is nearly on most of your Coven units. And then lastly we have our Combat Drugs, which is units with this ability gain effects of the Combat Drugs table. For each unit, choose an ability or risk it by rolling 2 and keeping the rolled effect. If a double is rolled, then roll both dice again until you don't get a double. I really like this because in the previous one it was choose one, but you can't be chosen again until you've used up the whole list, or you could roll for it and you get a random one. This one allows you to go, right, I'm going to design my army with this in mind if I want, or I can roll it and I'll get 2 abilities, and it's more of if you take a chance you get a reward. And I really quite like that. Only thing is, if you take like 4 Wych Cult units and you've got Hellions and everything, and each unit has a combination of 2 different abilities, it is going to be a nightmare keeping track of all of that, so that might be a nightmare. What do the drugs do? Number 1 is Adrenalite, add 1 to attack if a unit charges or performed a heroic intervention. Number 2 is +1 strength. Number 3 is +2 movement. Number 4 is +1 toughness. Number 5 is +1 weapon skill. And number 6 is +1 bliss skill and leadership. Next up we're looking at the Lords of Commorragh. Now this is your sort of upgrade abilities, kinda like the Space Marine ones where you got like the Chapter Master and stuff. This is very similar. Now there is Master Succubus, Master Haemonculi. I'm a bit disappointed we only got 1 for each. I thought it was going to be something similar to even Space Marines. I think they're spread out for different HQs. They get 1 of each, but there's 7. It would have been nice maybe to get 2 of each for the Archon, the Succubus and Haemonculi, and would still have less than Space Marines. But unfortunately it's just 1 of each, but they are pretty cool nonetheless. So army is Battle Forge with Drukhari Detachment, excluding auxiliary support, super heavy auxiliary. Don't think Drukhari have any of that. Fortification, network and detachment. You can upgrade one of the following Drukhari characters, but not named, from each detachment in your army: Archon, Succubus and Haemonculi. Real Space Raid can upgrade each in its detachment. You gain keywords and abilities described and gain access to the Relic and Warlord Trait. You can only include 1 Master Archon from the same Cabal, and same applies to Succubus and Haemonculi, meaning you can have multiple, but you have to be from different Cabals, Wych Cults and Covens. Master Archon is Splintered Genius, +1 power level and 15 points. Master Succubus is Show Stealer, +1 power and 15 points. And Master Haemonculi is Alchemic Maestro with +1 power level and 20 points. Master Archon is described as Kabalite Diversion. Abilities is Splintered Genius, once per battle at the end of the fight phase. If this model is within engagement range of an enemy unit, it can fight again. Relic is Soul Helm. The bearer gains the following ability each time an attack is made with the target against the target. The bearer subtracts 1 from attack rolls against them. Ignore wounds on a 5+. Warlord Traits is Consummate Weapon Master. Add 1 to damage characteristic of all melee weapons this warlord is equipped with, excluding relics. For the Master Succubus, the Wych Cults Spectacle. Ability: each time this model makes a consolidation move, it can move an additional 3 inches, and it does not have to finish. Does not need to move closer to the closest enemy model. Relic is Dancer's Edge, Archaic Glaive upgrade, melee +2 strength, -4 AP and 2 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified wood roll of 6, involved saves cannot be taken. So you're seeing a lot more weapons that are like ignoring invuls. This one only activates in 6s. If it was always, then this would be a very good relic, but being situational to 6s kinda makes it a bit more difficult to recommend. I still think it's quite good though. Warlord Trait, Whirling Death. Each time this warlord fights, after pile-in moves, you can choose for its attack characteristic to equal 3 plus number of any models that are within 2 inches of it. This is a tricky one because if you're charged by like a horde of orc boys, and if they attack first, they're probably going to chop you to pieces. Just weight of dice getting you. But say if you got into your opponent and they got round you, yeah, there might be a chance you're going to get plenty of attacks. But ultimately, I'm going to have to see what the situations do to bring it, a huge amount of attacks. Could be chances of getting loads, and then maybe not. Master Haemonculi Proclivity. Ability: once per battle, at end of phase in which this model is destroyed, roll d6, 2+, it comes back to life, and it's close where it could be when it was destroyed, but not within engagement range, and with d3 wounds. Relic is the Poisoner's Ample, once per battle at the end of the movement phase. Relic can be used, select an enemy unit within 9 inches, On a 2+, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds until the next phase. That unit's aura abilities are switched off, and finally, till the end of the next turn, they cannot benefit from friendly aura abilities. Warlord Trait, Twisted Animator. In your command phase, you select one friendly Haemonculi Covens rack unit within 3 inches, and D3 destroyed models can be added back to the unit. So a couple of interesting ones there. Considering how it's only 15 points, you're mainly looking at the ability here and if it's worth it. And if it is, then take it, and then the Relic and the Warlord Trait is a bit of an addition. Next up we have the Favoured Retinues, something we saw a little bit about with the Kabalite Trueborn, but there is different ones for the Witches and the Racks as well. So we'll just go into restrictions first. Crusade Force cannot start with this upgrade, you've got to unlock it. But Kabalite Trueborn, for each Master Archon you can turn one Kabalite Warrior unit into Trueborn in the same detachment. Maximum of 10 in a squad, Bliss skill 2+, 1 leadership extra and ignores ballistic skill modifiers. Next up is Hecatrix Blood Brides. For each Master Succubus or Lilith Hesprax you can turn one unit of Witches into Hecatrix Blood Brides in the same detachment. Max again is 10, Whim skill is 2+, +1 leadership, and Blade Artist ability activates, when it activates it's -3 AP instead of -1. Next up we have Haemonculi. Yep, I can't pronounce that. Basically upgrade to Racks. For each Master Homunculus or Urine Regrath, you can turn one unit of Racks into Haemonculi in the same detachment. Max 10 in squads, improves save characteristics and invul save by 1 to a maximum of 4+. +1 leadership, and once per phase, the first time a saving throw is failed for this unit, the damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 0. So a lot more additional survivability on that one. Now sadly, they do cost points. Kabalite Trueborn, Hecatrix Blood Brides and the Rack upgrades cost an extra 1 power level per 5 models and 2 points per model. So this means that Kabalite Trueborn will be 10 points, Hecatrix Blood Brides will be 12 points, and the Rack upgrade will be 10 points. On to Kabals next. I know some people are going to be very interested in this one. Spoiler alert, Agents Vect has changed. It's only 0 command points now, so what does it do? Well, let's start off with Cabal of the Black Heart. Obsession, Thirst for Power. Units treat current battle round as being 1 higher than it actually is when determining power from pain. Real Space Raid with Cabal of Black Heart allows Blades for Hire in the detachment to treat current battle rounds as 1 higher as well. Leadership is +1. Each tiny unit with this obsession is selected to shoot or fight. You can reroll 1 hit when resolving that unit's attack. Ultimately, I'm a little bit disappointed by this one. A lot of the power from pain is about either survivability or melee stuff. For instance, you're going to be in the first battle round anyway, but then if you've got the advantage on turn 1 of being battle round 2, that means you're getting to advance and charge, which you're most certainly probably not going to do in turn 1, and you're certainly not going to do it with Kabalite Warriors. So that seems a bit of an odd one. Next one after that is +1. I think +1 to weapon skill and the vehicles get a benefit. I don't think that's the best one for this one either. Battle round 4, so battle round 3 for them would be the 5-up invul, and that's when you'd really see a bit more of a benefit. Ultimately, just the way that power from pain works, and it doesn't probably help the Kabals as much as would things like Witches or Covens, it's a bit of a strange one. The other part, obviously, the reroll 1 hit when resolving the unit's attack, that's quite good, I suppose, in itself. The other part, I think, was the Blades for Hire, count theirs as 1 higher if they're in a Real Space Raid. That's okay, you know, again, advance and charge turn 1 is not the best, and then turn 2 you're going to get +1 weapon skill. Your Blades for Hire, which is like your Incubi and your Mandrakes. Incubi are already hit on 2s in combat, so, and then you're going to get, I just feel that this one's a little bit of an odd one overall. Warlord Trait is Labyrinth of Cunning. While Warlord is on the battlefield, each time you or your opponent spends command points for a stratagem, roll a d6, and on a 6 you gain command point farming. Pretty good. Relic, Rite of the Living Muse. Ooh, this might hurt some people. Cabal of the Black Heart Archon, 6-inch order that allows Cabal of the Black Heart core units within range. Each time model in that unit attacks, reroll wound rolls of 1. If Real Space Raider, then it affects Blades for Hire as well. Now I know the previous strategy was, I believe, you take 3 Ravagers and an Archon along with this Rite, and then you just stick them in the back, and the Ravagers would pummel out with loads of Disintegrator cannon shots, and then you get to reroll hit rolls of 1 and reroll wound rolls of 1. I'm pretty sure because they do not have the core word, that strategy is gone. Don't think, Ravagers are still pretty good units, but losing out all that reroll is really going to sting. Stratagem is Agents of Vect, 0 command point. Use the stratagem after your opponent uses a stratagem, excluding command reroll. Until the end of the battle, the CP cost of your opponent must pay to use that stratagem again is increased by 1. Can only be used once. So we've lost the ability to stop a stratagem, and I think that's going to annoy a few people. I think just the way 9th is going, a lot more stratagems are becoming more useful, so we tend to spread out rather than using the same stratagem over and over again, though some armies still are doing it. I think this is okay. Good thing it's 0 command points. If it was 1, I'd say it's almost definitely not worth it. It's okay, and there's going to be armies that this is really going to hurt because they just use the same command point over and over again. Looking at Chaos Space Marines at the moment using Vets of the Long War, that is going to become very, very expensive if each time you use it. It's 2 command points. But it'd be nicer if it actually cost an extra point when they first use it rather than just after it. But still, it's a big change, and overall, I think Kabals of the Black Heart might be quite a wee bit hurt as a popular faction. However, next one I'm a big fan of is the Cabal of the Poisoned Tongue, and this was shown already. Obsession, the Serpent's Kiss. Poison weapons improved by 1, i.e. Poison 4+, becomes Poison 3+. If enemy units loses a model to poison weapons until the end of the turn, -1 combat attrition. That is fantastic. I mean, Cabal units really want to be shooting out a bunch of poison shots, bunch of splinter rifles. That 3 up to wounds makes them really efficient, if only they had a bit more AP. And then obviously the combat attrition 1 -1 is really good as well. Warlord Traits, Towering Arrogance, 5 up, ignore wounds, 6 up, 6-inch aura. Cabal of the Poisoned Tongue units within range, ignore modifiers to combat attrition. Relic is Soul Seeker, Cabal of the Poisoned Tongue only, splinter weapon, range 18, pistol 2, strength 2, AP -2, and D3 damage. It's a poison 2+, ignores Lookout Sir, and ignores cover. That is deadly. You could have an Archon flying by, 2 pistol shots at a character that might be getting a little bit too close, and really do some damage, so I quite like that one. Stratagem, Insidious Misdirection, 2 command points. Use this stratagem at the start of the first battle round. 3 units can redeploy and can be put in strategic reserve regardless of how many units already there and without paying additional command points. Really good stratagem. I think a lot of the ways you're going to win with Drukhari is going to be how you manage your deployment. So if you get first turn, you can manage these units into better places that they can do most damage. Or if you do lose first turn just before the first battle round, you can then decide to put them in strategic reserve and make them come by later on, hopefully wreak some havoc. So I think that's a really good stratagem for 2 command points. The next one is Cabal of the Flayed Skull, Obsession, Slave from the Skies. Fly units and those embarked on fly units ignore targets benefiting from cover and add 2 to the vehicles. Add 2 to the movement of vehicle models. I think this is a tricky one. I think in the past it was like add +1 to the hit rolls for units when they target fly units. I think, and I could be wrong in that one, but ultimately now that is, it just ignores benefit from cover. Cover is still not as predominant as what it once was, although arguably it has got a lot better. And then obviously the movements, just making them even faster, is kind of nice. But ultimately, not 100% sure on that one. There's some custom ones that are pretty darn good as well, and I'll go into that in a minute. Warlord trait is Famed Savagery. Warlord adds +1 strength and attack. Relic is the Obsidian Veil. Archon is 4 up invul. And Stratagem, Master of the Shadow Sky, is 1 command point. Stratagem used in shoot phase, let unit shoot. +1 to it if the target is a fly unit, +2 to it if it is a aircraft unit. Not bad. That one I think is actually pretty good. Solid way if you're fighting Craft World or Tau with loads of fly units, then yeah, that could certainly do some damage. Next up is the Cabal of the Obsidian Rose. Their obsession is Flawless Workmanship. Add 6 inches to assault, rapid fire and heavy weapons, excluding relics, models that have this obsession. Each time a unit shoots or fights, you can reroll 1 wound roll when making units attacks. Pretty good. I think adding the range is going to really help, but we are super fast anyway. There's very rarely going to be times you're not in range because you can cover the board so quickly. Warlord trait, Deathly Perfectionist. Add 1 to strength characteristic of weapons this warlord is equipped with, excluding relics. Relic, the Armour of Misery. Save becomes 3+, and melee attacks are -1 to it. Bit sad this is now behind. I don't know if in the previous codex this was behind the Obsidian Rose already. I remember editions ago it was a really cool relic, so it's good to see it again. Just would have been nice as a generic one, just I have fond memories. And Stratagem is failure is not an option, 1 command point. Use after taking combat attrition for a Cabal of the Obsidian Rose units before the models flee. You can shoot with each model that would flee, or if it is engagement range, making a melee attack. If an enemy model is slain by these attacks, no model flees, you count as past the morale test. Bit of an interesting one, because you've got to slay an opponent to really get the true benefit from this. So you might go, well, I'm going to flee with this Dark Lance, fire, miss, and then that Dark Lance has to flee because it was one of the models that was about to flee. You can't go, oh, well, I fired it, didn't work, I'll take a Splinter Rifle off instead. No, that model has to flee, but if you do succeed, then all the better. It's a bit of a high risk, high reward on this one. It is 1 command point, so it's really going to depend on how much of a unit flees, if it's going to be actually worth it. Now, the custom Cabals, how this works is you get to choose 2 obsessions unless it's marked all-consuming, in which case you can only choose that one. We'll start with the all-consuming, which is Deadly Deceivers. Units with this obsession are eligible to shoot at a turn which they fell back. If they do so, then they'll get -1 to their hit roll. That might be absolutely excellent. Allowing your Ravagers, Raiders, etc. to fall back and then still fire is very, very important. Something fly units used to have. I think that's a very good one. Toxin Crafters, unmodified hit rolls with poison weapons of 6. Change the poison weapon attack to poison 2+. So if you hit on a 6, you're going to wound on a 2+. And then poison weapons, reroll wound rolls of 1. That's an excellent one. If you're going to drown your opponent in poison weapons, that is a very, very good one. Don't know if it's going to be better than the Poison Tongue, but something to think about. The normal ones, the highlights I see, is Merciless Razorkin. Each time a model with this obsession makes an attack with Splinter Weapon, unmodified hit roll of 6 scores 1 additional hit. Torturous Efficiency, ranged weapons on unmodified wound rolls of 6 improve the AP by 1. And Webway Raiders, reduce Webway Portal Stratagem by 1 for any units with this obsession that is selected. Next up we have our Wych Cults, starting with the Cult of Strife. This is Leoth Hespraxes, I'm pretty sure. Their obsession is the Spectacle of Murder. They can fight first, and +1 to charge rolls as long as the unit being charged is not currently in engagement range. So if your target is out on their own, not been engaged, +1 to charge, which is quite handy. Warlord Trait is Blood Dancer. Each time this model makes a melee attack, unmodified hit rolls of 6 score 2 additional hits. Now I'm pretty sure Lilith has this, and her weapons already give her +1 automatic hit when she rolls a 6 to hit. So that's potential 3 extra attack per 6s. If you get 3 or 4, well, even 2 or 3 6s in a hit roll, oh boy, that's going to be a lot of automatic hits. So really, really something to think about there. The relic is the File Banquet Bouquet. Cult of Strife Succubus only. Roll a d6 at the start of each battle round. User gains benefit from that combat drug. And it is cumulative if they already benefit from that drug. Pretty sure that you can use this every battle round, so it's just loads of extra bonuses to you. Stratagem, no method of death beyond our grasp, 2 command points. Use the stratagem at the end of the shooting or fight phase. You can shoot or fight again. Use once per battle round. We also have Wych Cult, Cult of the Cursed Blade, obsession only strong will thrive, +1 strength characteristic. I think that's excellent for Witcher units. Each time an unmodified save roll of 6 is made for a model with this obsession against a melee attack, after a model's unit has finished its attacks, the enemy unit takes a mortal wound. So if you manage to roll up a 6 up to save, your opponent takes 1 mortal wound. It's not bad, but I think the strength characteristic going up to strength 4 is very important. Warlord Trait, Treacherous Deceiver, replace second part of the obsession where it activates on 4+ instead. So where I said previously, if you roll a 6 to save, you cause a mortal wound. This it becomes 4. Honestly, it's just like a mortal wound, and if you start getting hits on you, that's not good. The relic is Traitor's Embrace, Cult of the Cursed Blade Succubus only. If the bearer is destroyed by a melee attack, roll 1d6 on a 2+. After the attacking model unit has finished its attack, then the unit suffers d3 +3 mortal wounds. Wow! On a, basically, if you take out a succubus in combat, you're going to get hurt, and if that's a character, that's a horrendous amount of mortal wounds you could come back at you. So I think that's a really good one. Stratagem, Venomous Shard Bombs, 1 command point. Use after an enemy unit charges a Cult of Cursed Blade Witches unit from your army. The unit can fire Overwatch before the charge roll is made. When it does so, up to 5 models in the unit equipped with plasma grenades may attack them. To the end of the phase, they also count as poison 2+ for those grenades. So, I mean, it's essentially Overwatch and you get some grenades, which is fine. Your opponent does need to be close by to you to use it. Ultimately, it's 1 command point and there's some really solid poison. Good roll with the amount of attacks you get with grenades. This could be certainly worth it. Interesting one. It's a defensive one, which seems odd for witches, but could be good. Wych Cults, we have Cult of Red Grief. Their obsession is the speed of the kill. Reroll charge roll, amazing. And then add 2 to advance roll. Moves. Not bad. Warlord Trait, Hyper Swift Reflexes. Melee attack, that target the Warlords always fail on a 1 to 3, no matter what weapon or the weapon the characters have or their abilities. The Relic, the Blood Glaive, replaces Archite Glaive. Melee, +2 strength, -3 AP, 3 damage. Honestly, I think that's better than the one that avoids Invul, because you're just getting a solid 3 damage rather than 2. I think the other one was -4 AP, but I think just the extra damage, depending on that one. But yeah, depending if you want to take solid 3 damage or 6's ignore Invul. Maybe the 6's ignore Invul might actually be better. Stratagem, Athletic Aerialist, -1 command point. Cost 1 command point. Use the stratagem after Cult of Red Grief infantry unit resolves its close combat attacks, but before consolidating. Instead of consolidating normally, if every module in this unit is within 5 inches of a Red Grief transport, they can embark upon it, even if they disembark this turn, and it has transport capacity to do so. Very much about placement, but it could be interesting. Keep your witches on the move and keeps them a bit more protected. So a very interesting one, but going to be a hard one to pull off, I think. The next up is the custom Wych Cults, and there's some very cool ones here. Again, you choose 2 obsessions unless they're all consuming, in which case you only choose 1. So the all consuming is Agile Hunters. Each time a model with this obsession attacks a fly unit, add 1 to hit rolls, and their combat drugs, Hyprix, is actually 4-inch movement extra. Then we've got Berserk Fugue, which is melee attacks if charged, was charged, or heroically intervened. Then unmodified hit rolls of 6 score an additional hit, and they also get a 5-up ignore wound against mortal wounds. That would be very good against psychic armies, but because witches throw out a whole bunch of dice, getting any 6's as an additional hit just drowns your opponent in even more dice. We also have the Art of Pain. While units with this obsession has the power of pain within engagement range of an enemy unit, treat the current battle round as being 1 higher when determining its effects. That's actually very good for witches, because a lot of the power from pain is about combat, so that's really, really good. Precise Killers, Blade Artist works on a 5+, that is excellent. Simply put, just putting up your AP whenever you roll 5+, that is really, really good. And Test of Skill, melee attacks against monster or vehicle, add 1 to wound rolls. Could be good as well if you're going to throw a lot of dice at monsters or vehicles. And usually you're going to be 6's to wound stuff like that if you're strength 3, but being able to wound on 5's or even maybe 4's if you manage to boost up the strength a wee bit more, maybe through combat drugs. A lot of potential to just throw loads of dice at monsters and vehicles, and you could be wounding on 4's or 5's, which would be excellent. On to the Haemonculi Covens. We're going to start with the Prophet of Flesh. Their obsession is Connoisseurs of Pain, so at the start of the command phase, characters, grotesque and monsters recover a wound, and anything strength 7 or less will always fail to wound on a 1 to 3, no matter what abilities attack models may have. It's worded a bit strange, this one. It's basically if it's strength 8 or above, then it kind of ignores this part. And if it was happened to be any strength, I'd say this ability would have been way too overpowerful for an army-wide one. This one's okay if you're finding something with a lot of low-strength shots, which many people bring against Drukhari armies. This might be an interesting one, but easily countered depending on some ways to go. But still not bad, I'd say. Warlord Trait, Diabolical Soothsayer. When model sets up in the battlefield, choose 1. Until the end of the battle, add 1 to toughness and wounds, or until the end of the battle, add 1 to movement and attack. Relic is the Vexter Mask, which is enemy units cannot fire Overwatch. Start of the fight phase, select 1 enemy unit within 3 inches of the bearer, and it must fight after all your eligible units. And lastly is the Stratagem Sin's Writ, which is 1 or 2 command points. Use at the start of the fight phase, select 1 Prophet of Flesh infantry unit within 6 inches of Prophet of Flesh Homunculus. Till the end of the phase, the infantry squads can reroll hit rolls. If it's a grotesque unit, then this will cost 2 command points instead of 1. Solid, ability, especially if you're going to run a lot of grotesque. This is actually pretty good. Haemonculi Covens, we're going to go with Dark Creed next. Their obsession is Distillers of Fear, 6-inch order, where enemy units in range, -1 leadership and -1 combat attrition. Each time you make a melee attack for a unit with this obsession, if the target's leadership is equal to or lower, then you get +1 to hit. So overall not bad. If you find an army with low leadership and maybe a horde type army, this might actually be pretty good. Warlord Trait, Fear Incarnate. At the end of the movement phase, select enemy unit within 9 inches and roll 3d6. If greater than the enemy unit leadership until the start of your next movement phase, they cannot perform an action, and if currently performing one, it fails and also loses OBSEC. Relic is Spirit Sting, replaces Stinger Pistol. Range 12, Pistol 3, Strength 2, AP -3 and 1 damage, 2+ poison, and invuls are ignored with this weapon. And lastly, Stratagem, an esoteric kill delivered from afar, which is 2 or 3 command points. Dark Creed core or character chosen shoot may avoid lookout, sir. If you choose a Talos, then it's 3 command points. So basically, your core unit or character can shoot and ignore lookout, and then Talos is a bit more expensive. Imagine with the Talos, that one might actually be pretty good if there's a character that's maybe a support one. But yeah, very interesting on that side as well. I'd ultimately say in this one, a bit trickier to do because it's a lot about leadership. Anything that's pretty high might be difficult. And then we've also got a lot of access to +1 to hits through Power from Pain. So having so much +1 to hit is not so ideal, I think. I think once you get to about 3rd battle round, you might not be using that as much. Next up we have the Coven of 12. Their obsession is Butchers of Flesh. Melee weapons, excluding relics, AP is improved by 1. A flat all melee weapons being improved by 1 AP is fantastic. Can perform actions and still fire ranged weapons. Not so bad because they don't have as many ranged weapons for units that require actions, like your infantry, your racks. They don't really have range. They've got a few ranged weapons, but it's not like the whole unit's fitted with them. Warlord Trait, Scarlet Imperium, is -1 damage to Warlords to a minimum of 1. Relic is Spirit, the Cleansing Blade. Homunculus 2 is replaced. Melee Strength User, AP -2, damage D3, poison and damage 3 when targeting a character. That could be very deadly when looking at characters. 2+ poison, really strong there, and then damage 3. Stratagem, Most Inventive Demise, 1 command point. Use the stratagem after a Coven of 12 homunculus unit from your army consolidates. Select 1 enemy character, not vehicle or monster, that is within engagement range of this homunculus. Roll a d6 on a 2 to 5, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. On a 6 it suffers d3 plus 3. So this is a bit of a tricky one in the essence that, it's what, provided I'd probably say you'd either have to charge unit and destroy it and then consolidate into the character, or charge the character. In which case this could be very deadly. Bit of a tricky one, but I think because the potential of that 6 getting d3 plus 3, when that goes off, that is a character that might get splattered. So very interesting, just a bit more trickier to pull off. But overall I like that melee AP -1 is pretty good. However, when it comes to the custom covens, this is where I feel there's a bit of a shining amount of good ones. So as standard is choose 2 obsessions from below, and if marked all consuming then you can only choose 1, or that one. So the all consumings is Artist of Flesh, count -1 damage for units to a minimum of 1 for all units bar vehicles. So this was the one I think that Grotesque are really going to like, because it means that any incoming damage is going to be reduced by 1, and Grotesque really going to attract that high damage shots on them. So I think that good bit of endurance really is going to be good for Grotesque units. Dark Technomancer, you can enhance ranged weapons for models in a unit, add 1 to its model's wound roll and damage, but cannot reroll the hit roll. If any unmodified roll of 1 are made for attacks with enhanced weapon, the bearer suffers 1 mortal wound after shooting with this weapon. If the bearer is a vehicle or monster, it's d3 mortal wounds. I think it's a bit risky, amping up the weapons, but it could be worth it. It's only on 1s when they actually go off, but really I don't know how that one's really going to work in terms of how good it is. I know that racks don't have that many ranged weapons, but like a Talos, that might be very good just to pump out a lot of shots and cause a lot more damage. They're normal ones, experimental creations, add 1 to strength characteristic. I think that's very good, might be good in the Talos. Hungry for Flesh, reroll charge rolls, again very very nice. Master of Mutagens, poison weapons that do not target vehicle or titanic units, an unmodified hit roll of 6 auto wounds. Master Tortures, reduce cost of Tortures craft stratagem by 1. Good stratagem, we'll go into it later, but basically it allows reroll wounds, so very very good if it's going to be reduced stratagem. Obsession Collectors, each time an enemy unit is destroyed by a melee attack, then a unit can recover D3 wounds or racks D3 models. And Splinter Blades, melee weapons of unmodified rolls of 6 score an additional hit. I think personally, when it comes to the custom ones, there's a lot of potential there. I love that -1 damage on Grotesque. I think that's going to be very very good if you're going to be using Grotesque units. But equally, that +1 strength, reroll charge, all very tempting options there. I'd probably say out of the 3 different ones, the ones you can choose here are a big highlight. Next up we come to stratagems, or at least the generic ones. So there's 24 generic ones to choose for, and there is quite a few good ones. I've got them listed up, but I'm going to highlight the ones I really like. So we've got Crow Deceptions, 1/2 command points. Used in the movement phase when a Drukhari unit falls back, it can shoot or charge, or both. If it's both, it's 2 command points. The Torturer's Craft, 1 command point. Used in the fight phase when Unit Grath or Haemonculi, this can be 1 or 2 command points by the way. Used in the fight phase when Unit Grath or Haemonculus unit is selected to fight. Reroll wound rolls, 1 command point on characters or units of racks with 10 or less models. Everything else it is 2. Remember that this can be reduced by 1 if it is used with their Coven ability. And I think there's plenty of units in the Coven units that would really like to reroll all wounds, because that's quite good. Lightning Fast Reflexes is 1 command point, used in the opponent's shooting or fight phase when infantry, vehicle or biker units is targeted, bar Haemonculus units. Till the end of the phase they are -1 to it. I think this used to be 2 command points, so having it reduced to 1 is great. I think it's mainly because you can't stack so many minuses to hit anymore, or at least when you do, it doesn't go up to like -3, because that's just crazy. Hunts from Shadows, 1 command point, used in the opponent's shooting phase when Drukhari unit from benefiting from light cover is targeted, add an additional 1 to their save, not invulns. Webway Portal, 1/3 command points, 1 CP to set up an infantry, biker or beast in Webway, 3 command points for 2. Set up reinforcements anywhere more than 9 inches away from the enemy models. Eviscerating Flyby, 1/2 command points, used in the movement phase when a Wych Cult unit that can fly, normal or advanced moves, select an enemy unit they moved over and roll a d6 for every module in the unit, as in the unit that flew over, I'm pretty sure. On a 5+, causes a mortal wound unless the enemy is infantry, then it's 4+. If the unit's 5 or less, then it's 1 command point, any more is 2 command points. And you can now have 12 Reavers, which is a potential like 6 mortal wounds on average. But the interesting thing is, I think that allows you to fly over characters and potentially do a lot of damage to them. So there's a lot of potential there. There is a lot of potential. Never Stationary, used in your shooting phase. Non-aircraft units can immediately move 7 inches but cannot charge. That's 2 command points. So this is kind of like your Fire and Fade, I think, for Eldar. I don't know if Drukhari got it before, but being able to shoot then get away, very very handy. Prey in the Weak, 1 command point. Used in the shooting or fight phase when Drukhari core units shoot or fights. If target unit is below starting strength, then it's reroll 1 set. If it's below half its starting strength, then it's reroll hit rolls. Good way to finish off a unit that's been significantly weakened. Screaming Jets, 1 command point, set up a vehicle in reserve, set up 9 inches away from enemy. Swift Outflank, used at the end of the movement phase, select a Drukhari transport wholly within 9 inches of a battlefield edge, remove it, then put it in strategic reserve. Murderous Descent, 1 command point, when transport deploys from reserve, units inside can disembark but no more than 9 inches away from enemy units. Crucible of Malediction, 2 command points, used in Psychic phase, select 1 Haemonculus unit and roll a d6 for each enemy Psyker within 12 inches. For each roll of 4, d3 mortal wounds are caused, can only be used once. So this one's maybe not the best like showing of psychic defense, but it certainly can be damaging. If you're facing demons, Knot of Corn or Grey Knights or Thousand Suns, this could be really good to keep in mind. You might have a lot of units nearby that Haemonculus, and just being able to throw a good couple of mortal wounds can be good. If you're only facing 1 or 2 Psykers, it's probably not the best. Hyperstim Backlash, 2 command points, used in the command phase, choose a Wych Cult unit affected by combat drugs, Until next command phase, all combat drug effects are doubled. Does not work with the file of Bouquet. Yep, the relic we talked about earlier. Potent melee toxins, 2 command points. Use in a shooting or fight phase and choose a unit. All units poison weapons, excluding relics. Poison weapons affect vehicles, but not Titanics, which may be very good. You might be facing down, a big vehicle of some type, put in a lot of shots, and if your poison weapons are particularly good, then it might do quite a bit of damage. I think it's the Serpent Kiss, where it's like you wound on 3s. That against a big unit of vehicles would really, really help, so that's a really good stratagem to keep in mind. We have the chapter approved rules. These are our custom rules that we can use as secondary objectives. Purge the enemy, take them alive. If selected, you score a victory point at the end of battle for each. Score 4 victory points if any character or monster was destroyed in melee by Drukhari unit. Score 1 victory point if any units were destroyed except characters, monsters or vehicles in melee. So if you are to go in a very combat heavy army, this may be worth it. Beast for the arena, score 3 victory points at the end of the battle for each enemy monster, cavalry or beast unit destroyed in melee by Wych Cult units. Score 5 if the unit was Titanic. Going to be very situational on that one, and it has to be by a Wych Cult unit in melee, so very, very situational. No mercy, no respite, fear and terror. Score 1 victory point for each model that fled from an enemy unit during that battle round. Now, it doesn't really say that has to be an enemy unit, it's fled from an enemy unit. So does that mean that you include the Drukhari in terms of this as well? As in, if your own units flee, then do you get a victory point? I'm not entirely sure, but that's sort of how it worded, I think. Don't quote me on that one, it just sounded very weird, and I thought, could I score victory points for my Drukhari fleeing? Don't think that's the intent, but the wording made me think otherwise. Battlefield Supremacy, Herd the Prey. Score 2 victory points at the end of your turn for each table quarter that does not have any enemy units, excluding aircraft, wholly within it. Does not work first battle round. Don't think this one's very good. It's a low amount of victory points for really keeping your opponent off the boards, and certainly, there might be one corner that you control entirely that they're not going to get on, but because a lot of 9th edition is about board control, you can't really guarantee that you're going to be able to keep them off the board in certain quadrants. So I would say, arguably, I'd say this one's not one of the better ones. On to Warlord Traits. Now it is divided into 3 with 3 each for Archon, Succubus and Haemonculi. Considering how many you've got as a choice of your cult or your cabal or your coven, and then they're splitting each of these in 3, I can sort of understand why they're only getting 3 options each. Be that as it may, some of them are actually very, very good. So for the Archon, you have Hatred Eternal, reroll hit and wound rolls. Soul Thirst, add 1 to attacks, and once per turn when an enemy model is destroyed within 6 inches of the Warlord to regain a lost wound. Ancient Evil, at the start of the fight phase, select an enemy unit within engagement range. That unit can't fight until all your eligible units have fought. Really like the Hatred Eternal, rerolling hit and wound rolls just makes your Archon much more deadly. Succubus, Quicksilver Fighter, +2 to attack characteristic. Stim Addict, when determining combat drugs for your Warlord, roll 2 additional d6 rerolling 6s or results already in effect. The Warlord has those benefits in addition to any others. Precision Blows, each time an unmodified hit roll of 6 made for a melee weapon made by this Warlord, the target suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the damage characteristic of that weapon for that used for that weapon. Attack sequence ends. I mean, I think that one, the Precision Blows, is really good. Any 6s on hits just turn to mortal wounds your opponent has to take. Goes by, invul save, don't even need to roll to wound. That as a Warlord trait, if you take Succubus, really stands out. Haemonculi, Mastery Generalist, each time Fleshcraft is used, regain 3 wounds, not d3. Basically you can repair units around you, I think, not just yourself. I'll need to check with the Haemonculi on that one, pretty sure that's the case. But you're going to get 3, you don't need to roll for it. Master Nemzine, add 1 to attack wound rolls, and then Master Artisan, add 1 to toughness and wound. So yeah, that is the Warlord traits for all 3 of the characters. On to the relics for the Drukhari. So there's not so many generic ones here. I think there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But considering how many there is through other means, then yeah, you do see there's quite a lot of relics on the whole for Drukhari. Anyway, the generic ones: Parasite Kiss, replace Splinter Pistol, range 12 inches, pistol 3, strength 2, AP -2 and 2 damage, poison 2, each enemy model destroyed by this weapon, the bearer regains 1 wound. Helm's Spite in your opponent's psychic phase gives bearer 1 deny, and if successfully denies, the caster suffers Pearls of the Warp. Honestly, pretty good that one. Gives you a bit of a deny, but also will hurt your opponent. I think that might be quite worth it. The Nightmare Doll, Haemonculi only, 4+ invul. The Djinn Blade replaces Husk Blade, range melee, +1 strength, AP -3, 3 damage and 2 extra attacks. Roll a d6 at the end of the fight phase where this weapon was used. On a 1, the bearer suffers 1 mortal wound. I find this weapon a little bit underwhelming considering there is a possible kickback. I don't think it'll deactivate your Shadow Field though, because you've not actually failed an invul save. But be that as it may, I do think that's a little bit underwhelming. The Animus Vitae, which is a weapon, is range 6, grenade 1, strength, AP and damage are dash. The bearer can only shoot this weapon once per battle. If it hits, target suffers D3 mortal wounds. If the enemy unit has 11 or more models, it is D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. Till the end of the turn, friendly units with power from pain treat the current battle round as being 1 higher than it actually is. Honestly, it actually might be a very good one because it increases your power from pain as well, army wide, so that might be quite good. And finally, the Triptych Whip, Succubus only replaces Agonizer. Range melee, strength user, -3 AP, 2 damage, and poison 2+. Add 3 to the attack characteristics. So the important thing, look at the Tri-Tech Whip and then look at the Djinn Blade. So you get an extra attack from the Tri-Tech's Whip. You are wounding a lot easier because you're going to be poison 2+, against vehicles not so much. Your same AP, the strength doesn't really matter because you've got poison, and the damage is 1 less to be fair, but there's no drawback either, so the only real thing is that the damage is 1 less, but you're far more likely to wound things as long as they're not a vehicle. Bit of an odd one when it comes to that. I just feel the Djinn Blade, that they knew that, that it was a relic that does hurt you for its use, but they just didn't power up enough in my mind compared to the Triptych Whip, which frankly seems a lot better. And here we come to the data sheets. So I'm not going to list everything, every single stat, every single rule and everything. I'm mainly going to highlight each unit and its differences. There's going to be a few units that do appear, but generally I'm just going to highlight, if I don't mention something, it probably means it's the same as the previous codex. Please note things like Incubi, which have had an update since the codex. I'm going by their previous codex entry. So if I say, oh, it's been improved by something, but when it came to Rise of the Phoenix and it was previously already improved, keep in mind I'm going by the previous codex. So saying that, let's start with the Archon. Archon is now a save 4+. It now has Blade Artist, and its rerolls to hit now only affects Cabal, Core and Incubi units. Succubus is attack now 6 from 4. Honestly, I was surprised when it was previously 4. 6 is a great improvement. It has Blade Artist, and reroll 1 to hit now only affect Wych Cult Core, and is now reroll wound rolls of 1. No Escape now affects everything but Titanic, and a Charnet reduces opponent's roll by 1. Homunculus, wounds now 6 from 5, attacks 4 down from 5. So it got more wounds but less attacks. It's got Blade Artist. Generally, nearly everything's got Blade Artist. I'm probably going to say that a few times, but generally everything does. Except for, I think, the flying units, the flyer ones. Master of Pain, so Master of Pain ability, +1 toughness only applies to core. 5-up invul is gone, replaced with 5-up ignore wounds. This is because they probably get the 5-up invul through the power from pain. Fleshcraft added. At the end of the movement phase, Coven monster or Coven grotesque from your army that is within 3 inches of this model. That model selected regains D3 lost wounds. Each model can only be healed once per turn. So a D3 fix up your taluses or your grotesques. Note, Grotesque, Talos and Kronos are all core units, so they can benefit from that +1 toughness, which is very nice. Lilith Hesprax attacks now 7 from 4. I honestly couldn't believe Lilith Hesprax only had 4 attacks previously. That is mad. So now she's way up to 7. Only attacks with her blades, which are +1 strength, -3 AP and 1 damage. Any unmodified hit roll of 6 is an additional hit. No more Impaler or Main. Keep in mind, if you take her as a Warlord trait, then she's going to be getting 3 extra attacks for every unmodified hit roll of 6. Blade Artist, power from pain, and no drugs. Pretty sure that's a lore reason why she doesn't take combat drugs. A League Apart is not called a League Apart is now called At Last a Challenger. More or less the same, but it's any hit or wound rolls, not just failed, so you get a bunch of rerolls. Reroll hit rolls of 1 is now only for core and applies to wounds, not hits. 3 up invul reduced to 4 up, but is now -1 to hit. Deadly Dance, she can consolidate an extra 3 inches and does not need to move to the closest model. No escape, same as mentioned before. Natural Perfection, select 1 in the command phase. Can charge when advanced or fall back, or if Lilith destroys a model in the fight phase, at the end of the fight phase she can fight again. Next up is Drazar, who's changed quite a wee bit. Wounds 6 up from 5, so he's got a bit more wounds. Again, as I mentioned, I'm quoting from the previous codex. 5 attacks up from 4, also blade for higher unit. The Execution Demiglaeve, single blade, melee, +2 strength, -3 AP, and 3 damage. Jewel is melee, +1 strength, -3 AP, 2 damage, and gets 2 additional attacks. He's Blade Artist, of course. Murder Salt can fight an additional time, does not need to charge. I think in the previous one he had to charge to benefit from it, now he doesn't. Ancient Warrior, reduced damage received by 1 to a minimum of 1, very nice. Eternal Warrior, 4 up invul, very nice. Tormentors, at the start of the fight phase you can select 1 enemy unit within engagement range of this model. Roll a 2d6, if the result is greater than the enemy unit's leadership then it cannot fight until all eligible units in your army fight. Master of Blades, 6-inch aura ability, friendly incubi, should affect him too as he has that keyword. Within 6 inches of this model, each time model in that unit makes a melee attack, add 1 to the wound rolls. Very good for incubi and very good himself, but a bit pricey. I think he's 135 points, but get him in combat with incubi and they're going to absolutely shred. Unit Grath, wounds 6 up from 5 and attacks 5 up from 4. Casket of Flensing, largely same but auto hits. Homunculus tools are not poison 2+, or now poison 2+. Inker and Jets are now different. Each time the bear fights, only 1 attack can be made with this weapon. If you hit, causes 1 mortal wound and attack sequence ends. Blade Artist and Insensible to Pain, 5 up ignore. Hammervors, reduced from 3 to engagement range. 3 inches to engagement range. Sustained by Dark Science, once per battle resurrection, roll a d6 on a 2+, comes back with d3 wounds as close as possible but not in engagement range. Scepter Torments, largely the same but only core units. 4 up invul remains. Contempt for Death the same. Also has the Master of Pain, add 1 toughness aura, which adds 1 toughness but only to core. Kabalite Warriors, attack 2 up from 1 and save 4 up from 5. Still 20 in the squads, weapon choices largely the same and they are Blade Artist. Witches have 3 attacks up from 2, keep in mind their sergeants all have an extra attack as well. Unit can still be a unit of 20. From the wording, if this unit contains 10 or more models, then it lists 3 options of which weapons: Hydra Gauntlet, Razor Flails, and Sharnet Impaler. Same happens at 12. I think this implies that you can take the 3 options if you have 10 models, and if you've got 20, you can take the 3 options again. I could be wrong, but that's just from the wording of it, and I think that's a great move. It means you're just going to be using a lot more of these different weapons and a bit more variety, rather than just spamming the same one over and over again. I think most people went Sharnet and Impaler to try and keep their opponent in combat. They also have keyword Haywire Grenades. Racks, no changes and can now be in units of 20. Core of Archaon, bit of a weird one this one. Now is a unit rather than separated. I think previously in other editions they were a unit and then they were separated, now they're a unit again. So this is a bit messy, I'll try and get this one right. Stats for all 4. Limian, same. Medusa, same. Slith, toughness 3, down from 5. Urgle, same. Eye Burst, now range 12, pistol d6, strength 4, -2 AP, 1 damage, auto hits. Shiamishi Blade is melee, strength user, 0 AP, 1 damage, poison 2 up. If target's not a vehicle, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts a mortal wound in addition to damage. Slith Battle Blade, melee, strength user, -2 AP, 1 damage. Urgle Talons, melee, strength user, -1 AP, 1 damage. They're all Blade Artists. Core of the Archon can be used as long as the detachment has 1 or more Archon and can include a maximum of 1 core per Archon in the detachment. Does not take up a detachment slot. Cold-Blooded Bodyguard, friendly Archon within 3 inches of this unit, cannot be targeted by enemy units. Slith and Urgul get their 5 up, ignore wounds. Furious Charge, largely the same for the Urgul. Turks and Crafters, very different and maybe worth taking to make some units better. Aura, while friendly Archon or Trueborn unit within 3 inches of this unit, it contains a Lemian model. Each time modeling that Archon or Trueborn unit makes an attack with a poison weapon, an unmodified hit roll of 6 auto wins. So really you're going to want that near a Trueborn unit. Incubi, weapon skill 2, also blade for hire unit. Demiglaves, single blade, melee, plus 2 strength, minus 3 AP, 2 damage. Dual, melee, plus 1 strength, minus 2 AP, 2 damage, 2 additional attacks. And then their Claves, which is melee, plus 2 strength, minus 3 AP, 2 damage. Blade Artist, lethal precision, as long as the Clave X live, any model in this unit unmodified wound roll of 6 adds 1 to the damage of the attack. Very nice. And then the Tormentors, which was the same as Drazar, is at the start of the phase you can select one enemy unit within engagement range of this unit and roll 2d6. If the result is greater than the enemy leadership, then it cannot fight until all eligible units in your army fight. Mandrakes, same stats but blade for hire. Weapons, same. Blade Artist, rules largely same but fade away. Once per battle at the start of your movement phase you can remove this unit from the battlefield, and then in the reinforcement step of your next movement you can deploy them again more than 9 inches away. So they've got redeployment, which can be very nice to claim lots of the field. Grotesques, stats largely same. Liquefier is 12 inches, assault d6, strength 4, AP minus 2 and 1 damage, auto hits and no random AP. Flesh Gauntlet, melee plus 1 strength, 0 AP and 1 damage when targeting non-vehicles, unmodified wound roll of 6, inflicts mortal wounds in addition to damage. Monstrous Cleaver, strength user, minus 2 AP, 2 damage, get an extra attack with this weapon. Beastmaster, toughness 4, up from 3. Blade Artist, Beastmaster Aura, while Drukhari beasts in range of 6 inches, they reroll 1 set, models can use his leadership. Whips of the Master, in command phase you select one Drukhari beast unit from 6 inches away, that beast can advance and charge. Creature Handler, if you have Drukhari beasts in the detachment, this does not take up a slot. Clawed Fiend, stats same. Clawed Fist, melee, strength user, AP minus 2, 2 damage. This unit can only be included in a detachment if it includes 1 or more Beastmasters and only 3 beast units per Beastmaster. Berserk Rage, while a model from this unit has lost any wounds, increase models in this unit's attack by 2/6. This is a bit of an odd one because all models benefit from this, but what if you destroy a model and no longer have a model with lost wounds? Does it go back to 4? Need to check on that one. It's a bit of an odd wording on it. But I imagine if you've lost... I don't know if it's the single model, but it implies the unit's attacks gets put up to 6. So that's pretty nice if all you need to do is lose your wounds. Razorwing Flock, same stats same, weapon same. This unit can only be included in detachment if it includes 1 or more Beastmasters and 3 beasts per Beastmaster. Commorragh, same stats, weapon same. This unit can only be included in detachment if it included 1 or more Beastmaster and only 3 beast units per Beastmaster, 5 plus invul. Reavers, so attack 3 up from 2, also 12 in a squad if you want. Heat Lance is 18 inches, heavy 1, strength 8, AP minus 4 and d6 plus 2 damage. That could be very nice. Cluster Caltraps, largely the same, but now engagement range not 1 inch. Grav Talons, largely the same, but on 6 enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. Blade Artist and Matchless Swiftness same. Helions, toughness 4 up from 3 and wounds 2 up from 1. Attacks 3 up from 2, so they've seen huge improvements. Phantasm Grenade Launcher, 18 inches, assault d3, strength, AP, damage, dash, blast. For each hit by this weapon, roll 2d6. If it's higher than the leadership of the opponent, they suffer a mortal wound. Hellglaive, melee, strength plus 1, minus 1 AP and 2 damage. Stormclaw, melee, strength plus 1, 0 AP, 2 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts a mortal wound in addition. Blade Artist, but rest is largely the same. Scourges, attack went up by 1, don't know why. Dark Lance, though we've not mentioned it yet, 36 inches, heavy 1, strength 8, minus 4 AP and d3 plus 3 damage. Drukhari Haywire Blasters, 24 inches, strength 3, minus 3 AP, d3 damage, and its blast. Attacks on vehicles on unmodified rolls of 4, they suffer mortal wounds, and 6 is d3 mortal wounds in addition to extra damage. I mean, Haywire's Haywire, I've been absolutely rocked by it before, so that's pretty good. Blade Artist, but largely the same. Don't know why they got the extra attack. Talos, stats, I suppose it's because they're a bit like Kabalite warriors with wings, I suppose. Talos, stats largely the same. Chain Flails, melee, strength user, 0 AP, 1 damage. Make 2 hits instead of 1 for this weapon, no reroll wounds anymore. Talos Ichor Injector, kinda the same, but you just need to hit to cause d3 mortal wounds. Talus Gauntlet, melee, +2 strength, -3 AP, 3 damage, -1 to hits. Blade Artist and 5 up ignore wounds. Kronos, 4 attacks up from 3. Spirit Siphon, 12 inches, assault d6, strength 5, -2 AP, 1 damage. Auto hits, unmodified wound rolls of 6 are 2 damage. Spirit Vortex, 18 inches, assault d6, strength 5, -2 AP, 1 damage, blast. Unmodified wound rolls of 6 are 2 damage. Spirit Leech Tentacles, melee, strength user, AP -1, 1 damage, unmodified wound rolls of 1 are 2 damage. Spirit Probe, unmodified wound rolls of 6, not 1, because that would be ridiculous, of 1 are 2 damage. Spirit Probe, the bearer gains aura ability while a friendly Drukhari core or character is within 6 inches of the bearer. Melee wound rolls of 1 can be rerolled. Blade Artist and Insensible to Pain, so 5 up ignore. Reservoir Pain, each time model in this unit destroys an enemy model with its Spirit Leech Tentacles, you can select this unit or one other Drukhari core within 6 inches of the unit. After this unit is fought, one model in this select unit regains wound or one lost model with 1 wound remaining. Ravagers, wounds up from 10 to 11, must resist, making jokes about, turn it up to 11. Disintegrator Cannon is the same. Blade Veins, +1 strength, -1 AP, 1 damage. Chain Snares, add 3 to the attack characteristic. Grizzly Trophies, 3 inch aura, -2 leadership to enemy models. Shot Prow, gain Shot Prow keywords, gives you a stratagem to use. And Blade Artist, 5 up invul, and largely same from there. Raiders are now toughness 6, up from 5. Splinter Racks, each time model their stats otherwise are largely the same. Splinter Racks, each time model embarked in this transport makes an attack with a rapid fire weapon, treat the target as being within half range. Most importantly, 11 capacity. Other than that, largely the same. Venom, attacks now 3 from 2. Blade Artist, but capacity now at 6. Razorwing Jetfire, stats same. Razorwing Missiles, Mono Scythe Missile, 48 inches. Assault d6, strength 6, 0 AP, 2 damage, blast. Necrotoxin Missile, 48 inches, assault 3d3, strength 2, AP 0, 1 damage, blast poison 2 up. Shatterfield Missile, 48 inches, assault d6, strength 2, -2 AP, 1 damage, blast, no more reroll wounds. No Blade Artist, I don't think the 2 flyers have Blade Artist, but the only thing in the Codex. Kind of the same after that. Void Raven Bomber, stats same, Dark Scythe is 24 inches, heavy 3, strength 8, -4 AP, 2 damage. Void Lance, 36 inches, heavy 1, strength 9, -4 AP, and damage d3 +3. Void Raven Missile, Implosion Missile, 48 inches, assault d3, strength 6, AP -3, 2 damage, blast. And then Shatterfield Missile, 48 inches, strength 7, -2 AP, 1 damage, is blast, and no reroll wounds. And then we have the Void Mine, which is once per battle in your movement phase. After the bearer makes a move or advance, you can select 1 point on the battlefield. The bearer moved across, roll 1d6 for each unit within 6 inches of that point, subtract 1 for captures, excluding vehicles or monsters. On a 4+, they suffer d6 mortal wounds. Whew. So you better not be castling up around this, otherwise drop a mine and it could be very deadly. And that is it for Drukhari. Sorry if I went a bit quick towards the end there, trying to cover all the roster. Again, if you want to leave comments or anything, I should be, around either in the comments or able to comment later in the weekend about any questions or queries you may have. What is my overall thoughts here? I think overall it is a good codex. Games Workshop knew that Drukhari is one of those ones that for years it's easy to drop the ball, and you've really got to think about how the army works in order to make it work best. And I think in this one they've largely done well. They've tried to amp up a lot of the damage. It's mainly focused towards combat, so anyone who's a big Cabal player, that's not going to be ideal, but the Wych Cults certainly can be absolutely lethal, and the Covens can be an absolute pain to move from the board. So I think that's largely quite good. The Vex part, losing that, I think will annoy people a lot, and then other people will be overjoyed to hear it. But generally I think it's a very tight codex. There's a lot of options, a lot of play styles that you can use to go there, and I think with Drukhari that's one of its strengths, so very, very cool to see that. If to say areas that need to improve, it's maybe just the model range, and that's rich coming from them having a fairly almost completely up-to-date model ones. Now I know a lot of them are over 10 years old, but if you compare that to their Craftworld counterparts, then is a new model. you know, I'd love to see probably Vect and a few more Cabal units. That might be quite good, because I feel the Witches, the Wych Cults, along with Hellions and Reavers and stuff, and then you've got the Covens with the Rax, Grotesque, Talons and Chronos. You know, I just feel the Cabals may be lacking a wee bit. I suppose if you count Incubi along with them, then they're about even. But just a bit more than that, and again, I'd just love to see Vect. You know, when he arrives, it's going to be a glorious day for the Drukhari. So thanks again for watching. Please comment, share, like and subscribe. Any questions, of course, hit me up. I will try and answer the best I can. And check us out on social media, see any upcoming projects. I'm not currently painting myself, I'm doing a lot of reviews and article stuff, but I hope to get back at the painting table myself soon. So thanks again, and we'll see you on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.